Truth Plus Media.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Mike Gastineau, and welcome to another edition of Iconic Sonics. Today's show is hosted by Alyssa Charleston and features a guy who was involved in one of the biggest trades in Sonics history, coming to Seattle from Milwaukee in the trade that sent Shawn Kemp to Cleveland. Vin Baker is our guest today on Iconic Sonics. Iconic Sonics is brought to you by Rise Above. They're our title sponsor, and they're a nonprofit organization that educates Washington's Native youth through sports and especially basketball. Learn more about the great work they're doing at nativeyouthriseabove.org today. The show is also brought to you by the Edgewater, the legendary Edgewater Hotel, Seattle's only overwater hotel. They offer unobstructed views of the Puget Sound and the Olympic Mountains from their rooms. The Edgewater is the official hotel of Sonics fans everywhere. Iconic Sonics is also brought to you by the Queen Anne Beer Hall and by Epic Seats, a trusted local business with tickets to the events you love in Seattle. EpicSeats.com. Our media partner for Iconic Sonics is Seattle Magazine. Find out more about their work at seattlemag.com. Now, Vin Baker on Iconic Sonics with our guest host, Alyssa Charleston.
Well, let's dive into all of it with the four-time All-Star. I want to start with where you're at right now. You are a coach for the Milwaukee Bucks, an impressive coaching staff there, and you are actually in Greece right now. How are you liking being a coach and either taking some time away or are you scouting?
I love being a coach. It's obviously it's a blessing, and the players I've been able to coach for the last 6 years. And I'm out here actually working with Giannis and Thanasis and Alex. So we're getting some work in the summertime. This is like my 4th or 5th year in Greece. So it's kind of like my third home at this point. So I love it here in Greece. But we're getting some great work in. Nasi and Yanni are hard workers. And so we're getting ready for the season.
Your last name is about to be Antetokounmpo. Close with those guys.
I think, or them Bakers. One of the two.
First, right off the top, just for a fun question, you in your prime versus Giannis, who wins?
Oh, as we always joke with each other, he always says this to me, and I always say it to him. It's a great Shaqism. He's barbecue chicken for sure. He'll barbecue chicken for sure.
Over. The second he steps on the court, it's over. All right. Well, we're going to be obviously talking a heavy dose of Sonics, but I also want to get into your crazy improvement and rise into the league. You grew from 6'3" to 6'7" in high school, and then 3 inches after that. What was that transition like?
It was amazing. Like, it literally happened like that. Like, my freshman year in high school, I was 6'1", 6'2", had a growth spurt my junior year to about 6'5". My senior year ended up being 6'7". And in that time frame, I only played 2 years of high school. So my junior and senior year, I was recruited by the University of Hartford. I got a scholarship by the University of Hartford and the University of Hartford only. And then from my senior year to my freshman year, I grew from 6'7" to 6'10.5". And so the growth spurt, for me, it was crazy because I had these knee problems and issues, but my parents, for the buying of the clothes, that was the real issue. So it was great though, because from a basketball standpoint, I had in my mind that I was going to be a guard. I watched guards, I watched Magic Johnson. I watched all these guards growing up. And so from a development standpoint, the growth spurt, the way it happened, it really helped me with my basketball. Later on, it helped me with my basketball development, kind of similar to a lot of people talk about Anthony Davis, how he had this weird growth spurt as well. So it really helped me in my development because for so long, I thought I would be a guard.
And that makes sense when we see your highlights and the way you played. It was finesse post, but obviously you could bang around down there too. Just a problem that we all remember, especially in Seattle. Obviously, you were 3-time All-Star in Milwaukee, and then you came over to Seattle and you became an All-Star again. I want to talk about that transition because you came to Seattle essentially replacing Shawn Kemp. I mean, he was involved in that trade. What was it like? Because I also heard you talk about this on Thanasis podcast about you didn't know coming into a place that you were wanted because Shawn Kemp was such a legend. What was it like coming into Seattle and a team that just came off a finals appearance?
It was like exciting in a lot of ways. As a competitor, it was exciting, but and to be perfectly honest with you, it was nerve-wracking. If you recall in 1996, 97 rather, and you just alluded to this, Alyssa, like the Sonics had just come off of a championship run like 1 year previous. There was probably about 5 power forwards in the NBA at that time that were untouchable when you're talking about the elite power forwards in the league. And I was aware of that. Like, and Sean Kemp was one of them. And so coming to Seattle was exciting. Again, I was game, but I also was like, this is going to be a big challenge because in Milwaukee, I hadn't won yet for 4 straight years. I'd been an all-star, but I hadn't won at the elite level of winning, not even in college, to be perfectly honest with you. So that from that standpoint, it was going to be a challenge. But again, where I was with my game, my confidence, I was still young. I was excited for the challenge. So I was up for it. And then I had great teammates, a veteran group that really like embraced me as well as a great coach who embraced me as soon as I touched down in Seattle.
And I also have heard that you were a pretty big fan of Gary Payton and Rain Man together, like the duo, and that was, you realized like that was no longer going to exist.
Yeah, like it's Pippen, Jordan, Kemp, Peyton, Penny, Shaq. Like I was a fan as well as anyone else, but I also saw it as a great opportunity for me. And I even watch highlights of Sean and Gary to this day. I mean, that they're always, and Stockton Malone, they'll always be one of the great combos in the history of basketball to play in our league. So definitely, I'm a basketball fan. As much as I've enjoyed great success as a player and as a coach now, I'm also a basketball fan. So yeah, I was definitely a fan of the Rain Man and Sean. Really one of my heroes in basketball at the time.
And that first year, obviously you guys win 61, 62 games, and you experience winning. How much did you enjoy that? And what memories do you have of George Karl or bus road trips and just the feeling of victory over and over again?
Well, it was the most exhilarating, gratifying, fun basketball year of my life until we lost in the playoffs. I'd never, as I mentioned, not since high school, my senior year, I hadn't won over the next 8 years of basketball. So the jury was still out on whether or not I could win. And certainly coming into that situation in Seattle with a team that 1 year removed from a finals appearance, it was great. Like the expectations of, I think some people naturally felt like there would be a drop off in the team. And so the fact that there wasn't a drop off, at least during the regular season, and we had this, it was magical. Like, I'm sure there was some anxiousness with Gary and Detlef and Hersey and Nate and Sam and Jimmy. What's this team going to look like now that we got a whole new guy who really hasn't experienced winning at this level? And so the expectations I think they were tempered by some people, maybe fans, maybe even some of the players. But what was interesting is Coach Karl didn't change his expectations. And I can remember in one practice, like maybe one of the first 2 practices, he started talking about how many games we need to win at home. We need to win 35 and we need to win this on the road. I'm doing the math. I'm like, I only won that 35, 36 number maybe 4 times combined, and both home and away. So it was like, but his expectations, his greatness as a coach, like he didn't stop to think about, well, we don't have Sean, or he didn't give me this feeling like we're going to take a step back. And he gave me that confidence from day one. So it just made that year, 1997, 1998, all the more magical. I literally watch videos probably once a week from that year. But it was fun. And the city of Seattle was so great. It's a beautiful city. One of the most underrated cities in all of the country. It's beautiful, on the water, great seafood. So it was just great. The fans were great. Key Arena was great. And again, it was probably, I would say with the exception of this championship run that we've had 2 years ago, was my best year in basketball ever.
Wow. love to hear that. And I know fans will too, because it was magical for sure. You talked about Coach Carl, and you played under some great coaches as well. Coach Carl, Wes Paul, and Nate McMillan. How much have they influenced you as a coach now?
I think they've impacted me a great deal from Coach Carl, like just really talking to players and giving them confidence. And having played myself, I kind of understand how important that is to be positive, to always reinforce positive reinforcement. And that's what Coach Carl did to me. And then from the standpoint with Nate, um, Nate playing the game, being honest, forthcoming with players. That's how Nate was with me. And I think that's something that I got from Nate, like not always coddling them, saying what they want to hear. Because Nate was interestingly enough, Nate was my teammate and my head coach. So it was an interesting dynamic there in that he didn't tell me what I wanted to hear all the time. And then Coach Westphal was really good too. There's things that I learned from him as well. So I've learned quite a bit from that coaching crew, along with like Terry Stotts and Dwayne Casey and all those guys that were on the staff. Coach Gerg, I've learned quite a bit from them, and there's some pieces that I take from them. But I'm developing my own coaching voice at this point too. So the players are different, the style of basketball is different. So, but I've had some great mentors. To your point.
Yeah, it's not easy going from player to coach as well, because you're still kind of one of the players. You feel like it, and you have to have kind of like an authoritative voice and change a little bit more to like mom and dad style in some cases. But it's so important to have voices like Nate's to be honest with those guys and honest with your own players.
Yeah, they respect it. I think the one thing I've learned is the one thing you don't do as a former player is when I played, especially because the game is so much different. And Giannis is it's so fun because Giannis demands that I coach him sometimes. He's like, Coach, I want you to coach me. I want you to tell me. And I'm like, 90% of the stuff you're doing, I could not do. So I don't know where to jump in here. Baseline to baseline, what angle you should go. But anyways, I've got Brooke Lopez, a 7-footer who's so versatile in shooting threes, back to the basket. Like these dudes are extraordinary. The game is different, but they want to be coached, and I'm very fortunate to be around players who want to be coached and will listen to my voice. Obviously, having street cred, NBA street cred, having played the game and been an all-star and an Olympian, they listen. But it's also great to have players who want to be coached.
Yeah, we are going to have a question about your Olympic time with that 2000 Olympics team for sure. I do want to ask you about Gary Payton and playing with him. I know that you've said that's one of your favorite memories is playing with a point guard like that, the glove. Peel back the curtain a little bit. What was your relationship like from the start? And then when did you know, like, okay, we're buds, like we're good, this is going to work out well?
Well, Gary's to this day my big brother. I love him like a big brother. Just a great, great person, great mentor. We speak to this day. He was part of that confidence build for me. Like he didn't allow me to come in and ease my way into it. Like there's expectations here and you need to meet them. And a lot of people thought we were so different from our backgrounds. And I grew up in Old Sabre, Connecticut, and he was in Oakland. But what we shared was we were both super competitive. Like I wanted to win at all costs. And of course, he's well known for wanting to, or being one of the most competitive players in the history of the game. And so from that standpoint, we thought a lot alike. And so he became my big brother, my mentor, and I respect him so much to this day. Like I've never played with in a season. I know I'm talking about all-star games. I played with Jordan, but I've never played as a teammate. I've never played with a more complete player. Gary had it on both ends of the floor. As everyone knows, I'm not saying anything that people probably don't know, but just one of the most complete players the probably most complete player I've ever played with. And I just enjoyed playing with him. He brought it every night. Just a great player in person all around.
Who would you say?
And I got a chance to coach Gary, and I got a chance to coach my nephew in Milwaukee for a few months. He was with the Bucks, so it was just like full circle. Gary even like lived with me for Gary Jr. even like lived with me for like 2 months in Milwaukee. So it all came full circle. It was, and he's doing amazing. So it's a family affair.
That is so cool. Did you try
Yeah.
to like share stories of his dad and like talk about old days and stuff? Or did you, make fun of Gary
Yeah.
Sr. to Gary Jr.?
Nah, because it's so dynamic. Like his dad's my brother, right? So
Right.
it was just more like and he's like genuinely my nephew. So I'd love on him, hug him, and I was there when Gary was like a baby. So it was just really special to have that moment again. It was like 2 or 3 months with the Bucks that I was there and he was there, and so it was just really fun. And I talked to Gary on the phone, talked about him and things that he needed to work on, and it was great. It was just a moment in time I won't forget. And now Gary is flourishing. He's an excellent NBA player, so it's just fun to watch.
Iconic Sonics is brought to you by Swinomish Casino and Lodge. Swinomish Casino and Lodge and their Unibet Sportsbook, where you can place bets on all your favorite games. And for the upcoming summer plans, be sure and put Summerfest on your calendar. It's back on July 22nd. Find your next big win at Swinomish Casino and Lodge.com.
Who would you say was the funniest teammate across your Sonics years?
The funniest teammate, I think most people would say me if you ask this to most people for reasons I won't disclose. But I think David Wingate was hilarious. He was funny. I think both Gary and him together combined were just like a comedy show. Like Gate was there when I first got there. Patrick Ewing was pretty funny when he got there towards the tail end of his career. This was his first time out of New York. So I would say Wingate, Payton, and Patrick in his own way was pretty funny as well.
Was Patrick like sarcastic? Was he just kind of like didn't intentionally mean to be funny and he was funny?
Exactly. Like he was like him being with Gary in the locker room. Like Patrick's an icon, right? He's a New York icon and a Hall of Famer, I think top 75. So, he was on the tail end of his career there. And so just Patrick and Gary's interactions daily were hilarious. Like, and Patrick didn't necessarily, some days he didn't mean it, like, but they'd be talking trash to each other. And it was like these two different eras and two different positions talking trash. And I'm like, guys, we're still on the same team here. But it was great material daily because Gary never, as everyone knows, Gary never stops talking. And I think I almost forgot to mention Vernon Maxwell was on the Sonics for a year, and he was pretty funny as well. So
yeah,
we had some characters.
Bunch of characters. I know Vernon Maxwell is also a fan favorite for sure.
Yeah.
You're talking about trash talking, and I just want to jump into this question too. The 2000 Olympics, you also played with Kevin Garnett, and I know you played against him a bunch. Better trash talker? Or I know it sounds like Gary Payton was the more frequent trash talker, like he does it as much as he breathes, but between him and KG.
I would go with Gary, but I would go with Gary. The reason I'd go with Gary is because there wasn't a person that he wouldn't do it to. And I'm not saying KG wouldn't. I know KG went after the great ones as well. But, man, I used to be like, I cannot believe he's going after MJ, Pippen. Like, some of the people he went after. And Malone, like, there's video footage of in the playoffs in, I think, 2000 of him going after. And I don't mean just, like, normal trash talk. I mean violent trash talk. Like, and so me coming from Milwaukee, I'm like, man, this is crazy. I would have never said this in Milwaukee. And so I would give the slight edge to Gary because there wasn't a person. I think KG had some limitations, but Gary had no limitations. It could be fans, it could be coaches, it could be the best player in the world. There were no limitations. And the interesting part with Gary is, like, I would say 95 to 96% of the people he trash talked didn't want to trash talk him back. You're talking about a very rare group of people. I'm talking about MJ maybe plus Reggie Miller and maybe two other people. But not a lot of people wanted to smoke with Gary at all.
I love the videos of other people just being silent, looking away. Like, I want no part of this. I want to be,
Yeah.
I want to be at home now. And you're making me uncomfortable, which is exactly
Yeah.
what he wants. Get inside your head, make it come to their game. What in your first and second years, what would you guys do as a team across Seattle? Maybe off the court to get together, hang out. What were your favorite activities, especially in the summer? Because I mean, I'm looking at straight sunshine right now here in Seattle, and there's really nothing better because it's about 70 degrees out there.
Yeah, Gary and I played a lot of pool and did a lot of golden tee. That was sometimes at his house, sometimes at this place called Jillian's downtown Seattle. We just played a lot of pool, a lot of golden tee, and we would trash talk all the time. And then, sometimes we'd go to a boat and play dominoes. There was a lot of off the court competitiveness going on there. I wasn't much of a dominoes player, but and then the food in Seattle, like Chandler's and Wild Ginger and all those great places to eat. Like there were so many great food places to go enjoy. So that was what we did quite a bit.
In terms of just Seattle fans across your career as well, what was it like to experience Seattle as a city, and go ahead and compare it to Milwaukee and to Boston and other places that you've played in terms of just their fervor for basketball in general?
Well, my time in Seattle, in particular, my first year, the fans were amazing. Just like any other city, like passionate, great history, obviously with the Mariners, the Seahawks, and the Sonics. So great history, knowledgeable fans, passionate fans. I loved my time there in Seattle. And even when I was going through it in Seattle, like going through my tough times as a player, I didn't feel it publicly. I didn't feel like people were coming down on me. I felt like, for the most part, I felt people rooting me on in Seattle. So I always have wonderful things to say about the city of Seattle, the fans of Seattle, my experiences, in particular, my first year. I loved it. And, that I hope there's a team there in the near future, because it's a wonderful city. The city deserves an NBA team. There's great fans there, and it's just a great city, one of my favorite cities ever.
Are you willing to be an inside source and say for sure are you cool with the commissioner, and do you know for sure if we're going to get a team? Yes or no question?
I would think, yeah, it's funny because I just had this conversation with someone literally like an hour ago, and I think conventional wisdom says that there's going to be either a team in Seattle or in Las Vegas. So it's not a matter of if. I just think at this point it's a matter of when.
Yeah,
but no intel. I have no intel. I wish I did.
Okay. We'll check back, and I'll keep bugging you in a few weeks and see if you know anything.
Okay.
Just kidding. You mentioned some of the adversity you went through here in Seattle, and I'm really interested to hear that Seattle more so embraced you rather than basically, insulted or tried to pile on. Your story is so important, and it's inspired a lot of people, and I'm sure it affects the way you coach now too. Can you talk about what led up to that a little bit, just because you had worked so hard to be talked about with the greats, and then once you achieved success, along with that came the partying and the excitement around it and wanting to celebrate?
Yeah, I think what was so unfortunate, and obviously 13 years sober now, I look back on it, and I wouldn't change a thing in the world. But I think what was during that particular time, I was in my fourth year and my fifth year when I got to Seattle, and things at that particular juncture in my career were coming so easy. Like I just finished a 61-21 year season with the Sonics, named second team All-NBA. I was named to the Olympics. I had my own Jordan shoe, and the partying it was like part of the culture. It wasn't a thing where I was ever thinking like, I'm doing this too much, I'm going out too much, I'm here too much, I'm drinking too much. It was kind of play hard and play harder, right? I'm good, I'm young. This is just the thing to do. And unfortunately for me, it got to a point where it became I was depending on it. And it like came out of the blue. And so one day I woke up and I'm like, I don't know why I'm shaking. I don't know why I'm nervous. I don't know why I can't, function normal, either on the court or off the court. And, that's when I discovered, that I had become an alcoholic. It was just too much of it. And what I thought, and I tell younger people and just people in general, like you got to be careful. Like for me, I didn't see it coming at all. I just thought it was part of the norm. And before I knew it, my career was on the line. And after celebrating this amazing year and a disappointing finish to the year, I went about my summertime kind of how I'd done it always, like little vacation, bunch of friends. But before I knew it, it had escalated into this thing where it had gotten out of control. And it was really, really unfortunate because I really enjoyed, obviously, my first year there. And the city was so special and amazing. And it was just really unfortunate that happened in that portion of my life. And thank God I'm better now, but I wish I could have given the city everything that I had during that time because it was so magical and could have been even more.
13 years sober, first of all, incredible. That is amazing.
Thank you.
I
Thank
can't
you.
imagine how tough that is and how every single day, I'm sure it's something, but that is the beginning of that process is something I don't think we think about as much now because yes, there is social media. So maybe we see it more often, but the NBA has changed. I mean, when you were playing in the NBA, it was like at its peak. I mean, at the early 80s, I believe it was still on tape delay, like the NBA finals, early 80s, late 70s were still on tape delay. And so it exploded in the 90s and you were superstars. And so the culture and like you're talking about the celebration, it's just so much, it's almost part of the job too, because you work so hard, you commit so much of your life and sacrifice your social life in college and in the NBA. And to be able to come out of it, what helped you come out of that? Because I know you visited a few teams after Seattle.
Yeah, I think just to be really honest, and I hit rock bottom in every facet of my life, like financially, career-wise, not in any particular order, spiritually. I was just a shell of myself as a human being. First the career went, and then the things that I've been blessed with over my career, obviously the money, the things, the material things, but that wasn't even the thing that really hurt me the most. It just, I wasn't who God created me to be. I just had become a shell of myself. The alcoholism had really taken away me as a human being. And so when I hit the rock bottom, there was nowhere else to go. It was either at that particular juncture, it was either death or turn it around. And I decided to turn it around and go the other way because there's just no other way to go. And I got the necessary help that I needed. It wasn't overnight. It took some time, but I got the necessary help that I needed, the hope that I needed, and I just started working it one day at a time.
And how much do you have influence over the guys that you coach now, and even players that you don't directly coach? I think anyone who reads your story, as hard as I'm sure it was to go through it, it absolutely is inspiring and can teach others, because you've clearly been still incredibly successful as an NBA assistant coach. Do you relay those lessons and kind of talk to guys when they're open to it about what you learned through your NBA career?
Yeah, what's interesting is that I think the guys know it. It's 2023, so it's been told, my book, God in Starbucks, and so the guys know the story. They know it to the core. And I think what's kind of cool is I don't have to really remind them of it. I think the fact that I made it out of that situation, which was super hard to make it out of, the fact that I'm here now is inspiration. I've been told by Giannis, by Brooke, and the guys that it's inspirational to them that you can overcome this obstacle that I overcame. Not only was I able to get 13 years of sobriety, but I'm in July of summer, I'm opening up my own recovery center in Milwaukee called Vin Baker Recovery. So
Wow.
it's just for them, you know, ironically in sports, it takes so much intestinal fortitude, obviously work ethic. And in recovery, it takes those same things, you know, like intestinal fortitude, the will to overcome, the spirit to overcome, the help, the hope. It's kind of a thing that we in an interest, in an ironic kind of way, it meets at some places. And so they're proud of me and I'm proud to work with them. So I don't necessarily have to your question, I don't necessarily have to say it every day. They just know that I overcame a hell of an obstacle to get here. And I'm stronger than ever now. And so when I say something about basketball or I say something about life, I obviously have a lot more behind it because of what I went through.
Absolutely. Incredible. Vin Baker Recovery Center. That's amazing. That's like literally full
Thank you.
circle, best possible outcome, helping other people, a multitude of other people. So congratulations on
Yeah.
that. When is that
Thank
open?
you. In July, it'll be open hopefully in the second week of July, and it's under its final weeks of construction. I'm so fortunate to have partnered with my partners, Addiction Medical Solutions, Shaw Rogers, Michael Erico, Beth Collier, and Steve Garrow. And we've been working on this for the last 3 years, and we're going to serve over 900 people a month in the community of Milwaukee. It's an intense outpatient. So we'll have counseling, we'll have medicine, we'll have hope, we'll have groups. And to be perfectly honest with you, Alyssa, like I love being a coach. I've won a championship, and as a player, I was Olympian, but this is the crowning moment of my life. I always tell people, like, when you go through something and you have the opportunity to say, I wouldn't be here if I didn't go through that, that's when you start living. And so I wouldn't have the opportunity to help 900 people a month in the city of Milwaukee, the city that drafted me, if I didn't go through what I went through. So I'm in a weird kind of way, I'm blessed that I went through what I did because I get to help save lives now, and I'm so pumped, and I'm so pumped about it.
That is incredible perspective. So positive, and it is the truth. I mean, it's such an important thing to be able to turn that into good and not bury it. And you have been open with that, and we so appreciate it. I think, yeah, just as Seattle, I'll speak for most of the city. We absolutely support you too, and
Thank you.
You were such a pleasure to watch for me, for my brother, my sister, everybody who grew up and saw you play, and even if they were, you know, 20s, 30s, you were an absolute joy. Last two questions here to wrap things up. And again, so appreciate your time. Was there a player in the NBA that really fired you up to go against, whether it was another big man or it was a pesky little guard like Gary that was talking a lot of trash?
I think honestly, it was one of the guys was my boss, like at the time, Michael Jordan. As I mentioned earlier, I endorsed his brand and still am a part of the brand to this day. And he just talked a lot of trash, not to just Gary, but to everyone. And I mean, it was great because he's like my big brother, my boss, and he's the greatest player to ever play the game. And I remember a quick story my first year in Seattle, and I went out to eat dinner with Scottie Pippen, and we were at this restaurant, and people were coming over to the table like, Vin, so glad you're here. And Scottie says during dinner, he's like, they still ain't gonna win, ish, right? So we leave the dinner. This is a true story. We leave the dinner, and I'm with Scottie, like at the time, another one of my big brothers and mentors. We leave the dinner to go to his hotel where the Bulls have like this party going on. It's like a hors d'oeuvre party. So I go in there, and of course MJ's in there, Ron Harper, the whole Bulls. We played them the following night, and so I walk in there, and MJ's like, he's like, where's that dude? You know who I'm talking about? Where's that dude? And I knew he's talking about Gary. And I'm like, Gary? He's like, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. And I'm like, bro, what? Like, I came to say hello. Like, I don't want any smoke. Like, so he was like, Yeah, he knows to be in bed. He knows to be in bed when I'm in town. Like, oh my gosh. And mind you, there's like Seattle people there. It's not this room for, we're in Seattle. Like
Yeah.
it's not a room full of like Chicago people. Were in Seattle. I'm like, why is he doing this right now? And they like everyone's looking at like how I'm gonna respond. And so I had to say something. I'm like, bro, no one, like, we're not afraid of you. Like we'll see you tomorrow night.
Yes.
And he says to me, don't you ever forget who's on the back of your sneakers. Right. Like, and I was like, oh, it's definitely time to go home now. This has been fun. I thank you, Michael. I love you, Scotty. I'm out of here. I'm not going to be the brunt of jokes in this whole. And then the following night, I hit the game winner to beat the Bulls. So it was just a cool story. But Michael, to your question, Alyssa, Michael always talked trash to me since my days in Milwaukee, but it was constructive. It was fun. Again, I had an opportunity to be a part and still be a part of the Brand Jordan family, and he's my big brother and mentor to this day. So, but he talked a lot of trash,
a lot of trash. Even when you guys are just hanging out, he said he knows to be in bed when I'm in town.
He knows to be in bed. I'm like, I'm telling him this. So I cannot wait to get home to call him. You should have never said that.
And the best kind of revenge, hitting the game winner to send Chicago back to Chicago. Thanks for coming.
It was a great that's one of my YouTube watches when I need to pick up when Giannis starts talking to barbecue chicken talk to me all the time. I got to go watch that video.
Pull up the archives.
Yeah,
I love it. Did you say anything to Michael after you hit the game winner?
I didn't. Like, he was, but I've seen his reaction multiple times, obviously, because I've watched it over 150 times. But it was so great. Like, in that building, I've watched this video way more than I probably should have. Like, A-Rod was in the building, Howard Schultz was in the building prior to him owning it. It was pretty cool scene. But it was a great night. I talk about that season, but that was one of the more special moments of my career as well in Key Arena.
That is fantastic. Great stories from Pippen and from Jordan, and you guys absolutely held your ground.
Iconic Sonics is brought to you by Simply Seattle. Simply Seattle, simply the biggest Sonics apparel store in the world. Locally owned by Sonics fans, and they've got lots of great stuff. A Golden Age collection satin jacket they have now covered with patches from Sonics history. It's just one of many things you'll find by going to simplyseattle.com and get 15% off your order with the code ICONIC15. Show your love for the Sonics at simplyseattle.com. Our show is also brought to you by Seattle Magazine, our media partner, Seattle Magazine at seattlemag.com.
Last question to wrap it up, just to kind of put a cherry on top of where you are now in your career. What is it like to coach this style NBA? And like you said, Giannis can do things that not only you can't do, but no human on the planet of Earth can do. So what is it like to coach this style of NBA and what it has become, for good or for bad?
I love it. The game, for the good, it's a much high scoring game, many more threes being taken. And it took me about a year or two to make this adjustment and see what was going on in the game. But to watch Joel Embiid and Jokic and my guy, who I think is the best player on the planet, the most humble superstar that I've ever been around in my life, it's an honor. Like, I pinch myself and can't believe I'm getting paid to watch this guy. A 7-footer go baseline to baseline. We've never seen it in the history of basketball. And the biggest thing I'm proud about with coaching him in particular, and Brooke Lopez and Bobby and Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday and all my guys, Pat Connaughton, Grayson Allen. What I love about coaching these guys, they're coachable. And although I played back to the basket 90s, I know how to coach it now. I know how to plug in some things. It's a thinking man's game. So Giannis is very open. Brooke is very open to me teaching them things about the game. And in a weird kind of way, I was somewhat of a stretch four, not shooting threes, but I know how to face the basket when I played. So, but it's an honor to coach, just not the talent, but the people. The character. And I'm very fortunate to be in that organization with such great players and such great character, from the front office all the way down to our staff. And so we have a great opportunity because we have great players. Chris Middleton's a great player. Drew Holiday is a great player. So we have a lot of fun. And like I said, like for me to coach that type of person, those type of people is just a tremendous blessing. And they're happy to see me coach, and I'm happy to be around them. And they've helped me and I've helped them. So I'm blessed.
Really cool to hear that they are coachable. I think sometimes there's a stereotype that once you get to the NBA, it's hard to retain that humility, but love to hear that they are coachable.
For sure.
Heat or Nuggets in the finals?
So at this time, it's crazy because I was sleeping. I'm still on, I think we're 9 hours ahead of you.
Probably.
So I know that the Nuggets are up 1-0 at this point. I can remember, it's funny because we played the Nuggets this year at Denver, and I can remember thinking, oh gosh, I'm so glad this team is in the West because they are monsters. Like, they were designed, in my humble opinion, they were designed to beat the Bucks. Like, their size up front with Porter, Jokic, Gordon, and they have Murray in the backcourt and Green coming off the bench. They were so designed to go against us in the final. So with all this due respect to this magical run that Miami, it's an extraordinary run that they've been on. That's something like we've never seen in basketball, especially with Jimmy Butler. I do think they've met their match with Denver. I think Denver's size, they have everything. It's kind of what we had, everything from scoring on the perimeter, interior scoring. One of the top 3 players on the planet. They've got a lot. And I think this is going to be a tough one for Miami to overcome. So my long and short answer, I have Denver, and I'll go Denver in 6. Miami has a way of humbling people on South Beach. So I'll go Denver in 6.
That is so true. Yeah, both teams so fun to watch. Like, they play such a cool brand of basketball, very team oriented, sharing and yeah, from superstars all the way down, humble too. Vin Baker, you are a legend. You are a 4-time All-Star, and you are doing so much better, so much more than we ever could have imagined than just being a basketball player here in Seattle. You're making an impact.
Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you having me on, and thanks to the city of Seattle, and love you guys, and thank you for the great years there. Just thanks for bringing me back to Seattle. I appreciate it.
They love you. We love you. Thank you, Vin. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
That's it for this edition of Iconic Sonics. Thanks to guest host Alyssa Charleston for handling the interview, and thanks to Vin Baker for spending time reminiscing on his days in Seattle and his days in the NBA. Thanks to all of our sponsors. We appreciate their support, and our show's not possible without them. You can get more information on this show and other shows by visiting iconicsonics.com. Thanks again for listening. I'm Mike Gastineau. We'll see you next time on Iconic Sonics.